Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for the 100, Season 6, Episode 12. Alright, so what an insane second last episode, I should say, to the season here. So the penultimate episode for Season 6. Now, this to me almost felt like the finale, and this is exactly what I was imagining back last week and even before that, where kind of I was laying out my predictions. A lot of the stuff that happens in this one kind of went like I thought it would. A couple surprises, of course, mainly being Abby being one of them. But the way this played out, like I said, it felt almost like the finale episode, and there's still one more to go. The actual finale is still yet to come, and so I'm really, really looking forward to it, to see how they play this one out, and obviously, like, the way it just feels, is it just me, or does it feel like they are really prepping for at least a couple seasons on Sanctum? Like, this doesn't feel like it's the end of Sanctum to me, and I don't think it'll end at the end of this season. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have for us next week. Please, let me know what you guys think about this episode and what your predictions are going into next week. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that one, and love to hear your guys' thoughts on the season overall and what you've thought of it so far. Really hearing some different opinions. I don't think it's the best season of the show, but I think it is definitely reinventing itself. It's a new chapter, a new book, if you will, as they called it, and I think it's been really great. So, anyways, really look forward to the finale, and that'll be next week on Wednesday. So, anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate that as well. But without any further ado, let's go into a recap for this episode. And I do have quite a few things to talk about here, so we'll try to get through them as quickly as I can, right? I want to discuss all the major kind of plot points in here, and of course that big cliffhanger at the end. Then we'll get to my rating, favorite character, and again, some overall thoughts and predictions as to what we might see in next week's finale. So, to begin, this scene was really great to begin the episode. It kind of seemed like a throwaway scene at the time. You're like, oh, well, cool start to the episode, okay. But this scene actually means a lot in terms of the episode when you see what happens to Abby a little bit later on. Just devastating. So this scene actually, with me thinking back to this now, and I think I watched the second half of this episode like 2 times. I watched it through because I was trying to piece together the Abby stuff all in here, and then seeing this scene again really just makes it, hit harder almost. So Abby sees Clark in the lab room here. So Clark still acting as Josephine, as she can't blow her cover just yet because Russell is still in there with her. So we see Russell, I guess, is trying to stitch up Clark, because he still thinks that the chip is in her. And it's something, too, that was brought back from last episode, because I thought last episode, Bellamy and her and Gabriel all agreed that they weren't going to put the chip back in. Yet, in this scene, it looks like she does have the chip back in, and that's what Russell is sewing up at the back. So I'm not sure, if it's kind of a fake chip, or obviously it's Josephine's empty chip. Like, she's not actually on there anymore. And so this is just a really interesting sequence of deception all the way around. So just a devastating scene, right, to watch Abby's reaction to it, reaction to Clark being gone. And again, it's just so disappointing, and I'll talk about this a lot throughout this review, mainly towards the end when I talk about Abby's character and all this stuff, but just really disappointing Abby's arc this season. I said this last review as well. For this scene to be kind of the closure, if you will, or the actual final reaction to her daughter being dead and this other, identity taking over, right, or, so she thinks, it's just a bit disappointing, a little bit lackluster to me, because she's had all this time, she was all focused on Kane, and then he sacrificed himself, and then now she finds out about Clark about, 2 weeks later in real time, and about 10 weeks later in our time watching the show. So it's just a little bit disappointing, yet it still is an impactful scene. She tells Russell that he will die for this, or something like that, or she says, I will kill you for this, I will never let this go. And we see Russell says he believes her, and he should. right? I mean, this is obviously, Abby can't do it right then, although I think she maybe, if she really wanted to, grabbed a scalpel or something and stabbed him in the throat, killed him. She probably would have died, though, too, because all the guards were standing right there, and they probably would have shot her down as soon as she made a move on Russell. But either way, she's basically telling him, I'm never going to let this go, and I'm going to kill you, right, when I get my chance because of you killing my daughter, right? Obviously. So then we also learn that Maddie is being pushed to the brink here with the bone marrow transplants, and that she will not survive if they take the required 6 doses that Russell needs. So then we see Abby volunteers herself for the last 2 doses of the bone marrow after making herself a Nightblood. And to me, I don't know what to think about this whole Nightblood serum stuff, because this scene with Abby making herself a Nightblood, I don't know. It makes the rest of the stuff that we've seen earlier in the series just seem so, pointless. You know what I mean? Like, they went through all of that effort to make Clark a Nightblood and all that stuff way back in season 3, I believe, season 4. That was a huge thing about Prime Fire as well. And now it's as easy as just injecting yourself and boom, you're a Nightblood in like an hour. So I don't know. I like it. It makes sense for the story and the overall plot of this season. I just felt like, and that's similar to some other stuff in this season too, where it just kind of makes earlier stuff look kind of pointless now, if you can just make yourself a Nightblood that easy. But I guess that is a natural development, being on a new planet and figuring out more technology. Yeah, you're going to get more advanced. And so that's fair as well. But anyways, so we see meanwhile, Raven is still trying to figure out how to crack the Commander AI to get Shade Haida out of Maddie. And this makes for a really crazy sequence because, Maddie wakes up and says, essentially it's the Dark Commander talking through her, but saying, that the kid will die if you try to get me out. Using the AI on the computer, and they just essentially have to inject Maddie. I think they do it like 3 times in this episode and just put her to sleep because they can't have Shade Haida getting out, and then Maddie's just pissed off that Clark has been killed, and so just poor Maddie in this episode, right? It's like they literally just have to keep putting her to sleep because they can't do anything about it. So anyways, so Abby's a Nightblood, and then later, we see Russell lets Clark go to change, and at this point, she actually sneaks back into the lab room and reveals herself to Abby, Jackson, and Raven. And it's a shame here that Maddie's asleep, because if Maddie was awake, she would also, have revealed herself to her, and that would have changed a lot for Maddie, probably. And really changed the whole course of the Dark Commander stuff, too. Like, maybe she could have taken control again, and somehow been strong enough to fight it off. But either way, just a whole roller coaster of emotions for Abby in this opening sequence. Like, first, she's crying. She tells Russell that she's gonna kill him and all this stuff for her daughter being gone. And then Clark just comes back and she's, elated to see her. So it's just, Paige Turkle actually did a really good job in this episode. Honestly, the writing was not helping her out, and I think she did the best with what she could do. Either way, Clark tells them about the plan that they have in place, right, to set off the alarm, set off the distraction, then let up the barrier, and all that stuff they've been working out, right? So she tells them the plan, but Raven refuses to go with her, because Raven would be able to open the barrier. She refused to go with her in order to save Maddie from Shade Haida. She says she wants to keep trying with the AI, though. We see a scene a little bit after this, and she is she still has no idea how to get through it. It just keeps booting her off. So then we see, because Raven refused to help her, she's forced to use Riker instead, who, of course, we know is already dead. And she doesn't know that at this point. And so she's going to Riker's machine shop to open up that barrier. Abby tells her, go and save us all again. That was a really great line there as well. Because she has saved them so many times, right? And been that fearless leader, so many times for this group. And it's true. Go and save us again. I really like the touch on that one. So then we get probably the most shocking scene of the episode, and it came at about, I think, the 18-minute mark of this one, which was just so unexpected. I mean, the rest of this episode, like I said at the top, played out pretty much how I thought it would, except for this. This really threw a wrench into things. And the show does that a lot, and that's what I love about it. So, in the skeleton room, we see Raven makes the observation that all of these bones are, that they belong to the past hosts of the primes, and they actually keep these bones, in one piece in this room. And I didn't actually clue into that the first time. I thought this was just kind of a creepy thing that they bought some skeleton, and put him in there. And I'm not sure why I didn't kind of clue into that, but it actually makes a lot of sense. That these are actually like skeletons of their past hosts, which is really even more messed up. But anyways, I'm sure that a lot of you guys probably realize that a lot quicker, but I like this scene too, just, kind of reminding us of that. And then we get a nice heartfelt scene between Raven and Abby, and we see Raven basically apologize for treating her the way she did, which I thought was definitely something that had to happen here, because Raven's been really mean to Abby, and she has her reasons, but maybe not to be that mean, you know what I mean? And in the last couple episodes, she's kind of come around a little bit, and I thought this apology was really fitting. And then Abby, of course, apologizes as well. She says she was wrong for resurrecting Cain, that Raven was ultimately right. I love this line here. Abby tells Raven that she's not her daughter, but she is still her family. I thought that was a really great line. Now, Abby being the only adult left, let me backtrack on that. Maybe she is gone now, but either way, so at this point, she's the only adult left, really. I mean, she's really the only parent figure to all of these, they're probably in their 20s or something like that, but, these younger adults, you know what I mean? And so for Abby to say stuff, like, you're still my family, you're not my daughter, but you're still my family, it almost seems like Abby is the de facto mother of a lot of these guys, including Raven. And so I think it just was a really nice heartfelt line there, for them to kind of finally make up after this whole season. So then this is interesting, because then it just kind of goes out of left field, right? So we then get this scene is followed up by Murphy and Amori walking in to get ready for their chips to be inserted, and be a part of the whole naming ritual kind of event that's happening that night, which was interesting because I kept thinking, I'm like, wait, are they going to be hosts for some other people? Because they're given different names and all that stuff, but I don't think so. I think that was just part of the whole ritual and making it appear to people that they were now gods, instead of just normal people getting this technology in them. But either way, so John tells Abby that the process of them, becoming these primes is better for all of them, which was an interesting thing. I'm thinking, like, is it really? Like, is it really better that you, Murphy, is immortal at this point after everybody hates you again? And same with Amori, she's not the most liked person. She's never been. So, I don't know. I'm not sure that I agree with that one. But anyways, so then it is revealed by Russell, who walks in with Murphy and Amori, who basically, at this point, he's gotten 5 hosts, right? But the whole time they're talking about resurrecting six primes, right? Six people, I guess, right? So he's gotten 5 hosts, but he still needs that one more to complete the 6. And since Abby said what she said before about killing him, Russell then has no other option but to use her as the last host now that she made herself a Nightblood. And again, I saw this coming. I have to say, not prior to this episode, but the very beginning, she makes herself a Nightblood, and Russell kind of looks at her after she reveals that, and you can see that kind of look in his eye, and I think J.R. Bourne played this really well. You can see that look in his eye that is like, I think, kind of a light bulb went off in his mind there of like, holy, like, this is now a host that would be around the same age as Simone, and someone we could bring back. Use as now a host, right? Since she's just made herself a Nightblood. So then we see as Raven and Jackson start to fight back, kind of create a distraction. Abby's not looking, and just, this is really shocking. Like, Russell just injects her with the needle right in her throat, it looked like. And so this needle kills her. It kills her. It ends her life, right? That's the whole process of this whole thing, right? Just insane. And we saw it's very similar, with Clark when they first did it, right? He injects her with the needle, killing her, and then bringing back Josephine. So this was just insane. We then see her kind of best memories flutter in and out as she's kind of fading away, as she's dying in her final moments here. Some great memories. We see Clark's dad, Clark as a young girl, and all that stuff. So this was just a shocking scene. And, again, I saw this whole thing coming in the beginning when she turned herself into the Nightblood, but this still hit hard. I mean, this was really shocking, really surprising at this point in the episode, especially at the 18-minute mark. Like, this is something, and Abby's a character, I think, that deserves, like, a final minute's death, very similar to Kane. So I thought this was a really shocking way that they went with this one. And if Abby actually is gone now forever, like this was her death, I'm kind of disappointed because I feel like she's been a big enough character that you would give her a little bit more of a satisfying death. But either way, very, very shocking here. So Abby is essentially killed to bring back Simone. All right. So we see after Gabriel decides to go in alone and abandon Bellamy and the other children of Gabriel, people waiting at the border. Of course, he's able to do this because he is a Nightblood, so he's able to go through the radiation shield. So we see he takes one of the guards' uniforms after he finds out that the naming ritual is taking place that night. So we see he rides into the palace area, and before getting caught by the guards, very smart here, is before he gets kind of detected or even noticed, he drops this red sun toxin bomb in the water right outside the palace. And so then when the guards come and get him, this bomb is already kind of bubbling in the water, we see, and it's already kind of going off and affecting I guess the ecosystem there in the water and all the other kind of insects and plants, or at least that's what he's trying to go for. But essentially he's trying to go for that alarm going off, right? That alarm being sound because the red sun toxin is present, right? And also, with putting in the water, I guess it could evaporate, and maybe that's how it's detected. I'm not exactly sure. So he's then brought to Russell, who he pleads to stop the killings and essentially cancel the namings process. And this was a really great scene, I thought, that played out here with Gabriel and Russell here. Again, obviously there's some bad blood between the two, but you do really get the impression that, like, they really were good friends before. But maybe back to their, like, original states, right? Before they were in hosts. And you really do get that feeling. Russell calls him an old friend. Gabriel kind of calls him, I think he calls him a friend at one point here. After he kind of pleads to Russell just to cancel the namings, of course Russell objects, right? He calls him out for being in a new body himself, right? So he's like, well, you're being a hypocrite, right? How are you calling me out when you're in this new young body? And, you're part of us, pretty much, right? Like, you're the one that's doing, that's switching bodies and switching hosts. And so that was just really great. And it's true, right? It's true. And Gabriel, even we see kind of a tear roll down his face. He didn't want this. And we get that idea over and over again that he didn't want this. And that he actually is kind of wishing to die, right? Or at least he was wishing to die before he got into this new body. And Russell uses this, so Russell tells him that he will get his death that he desires after all. But before that, we see Gabriel then fight off the guards and even hold Russell at gunpoint then. And I love this because he says, dying isn't on my itinerary or something like that. I thought that was a really nice line there. So anyway, so he holds Russell at gunpoint here. Just a really intense suspenseful sequence here. And so as the red sun eclipse alarm sounds outside, he has Russell in his scope. Though the problem is that it comes too soon. Now, this whole thing, right, because Gabriel kind of expedites the whole mission, the whole plan, in that he goes in alone instead of waiting with the others. And so, with the alarm sounding, it actually comes a little bit too soon because Clark and the others haven't been able to get the barrier down yet for Bellamy and company back, on the other side of the border. So this is, it just almost plays out a little bit too early, although it is what the plan was. It's just Clark hasn't figured out yet. So then we see Clark has Priya right where she wants her, though. Really thinks of this great plan with a little bit of help from Echo after she reveals herself in the cafe. That was just a really great scene as well. So she essentially has Priya right where she wants her. She basically threatens to destroy Riker's chip that she took off his dead body earlier, and that if she doesn't help open the barrier, right, that she will destroy the chip and Priya will lose her son. And I mean, like, actually lose her son forever, because this tech is just going to be gone. It's going to be demolished. So I thought this was really smart, and I'm not sure why stuff like this hasn't happened earlier in the season with the Primes. I just, like, maybe even Miranda's chip. If Maddie had taken Miranda's chip and threatened to destroy it, she probably could have gotten a lot more, a lot better treatment. I'm not sure exactly how that would have went, but either way, I feel like this is, a little bit late. Like, maybe this should have been used before. Maybe these people should have thought about this, but anyways, so Bria is forced to help them. And then we see, meanwhile, back at the palace, Gabriel has the opportunity to kill Russell right then and there. And I mean, not really kill him, but at least kill this incarnation of him, right? And so he's able to kill him right then, but then the guards come in. And this is kind of where it changes it, because the guards come in, and Russell even says to Gabriel, like, kill me, and then he tells his guards what to do, take my chip to, Simone, and we'll just resurrect me. And I think Gabriel recognizes this, and recognizes to himself, like, what is the point of this? Like, I kill him now, the guards probably kill me, right? And then he could just come back. He's not actually really going to die, and so he just can't bring himself to do it in this scene. Russell tells him that he never had the stomach to be a god, after all, and orders him to be tied up, and then also to shut off the alarm, and then he goes out on the balcony to reassure all the people that nothing's wrong. And so it essentially just breaks up their whole plan of creating that distraction right then and there, because Gabriel isn't able to kill Russell. Though, again, I'm not sure how I feel about this scene, but it kind of does make sense to me, because it does seem a little bit convenient for the plot of the episode that Gabriel doesn't bring himself to kill him in this scene. But it also makes a little bit of sense to me as well in this way, because like I said, I think Gabriel recognizes, okay, if I kill him here, right, he isn't really going to die, and then the guards are probably going to kill me, right? I think that's what would have happened. So I think he recognizes that, but then also, he really was close to Russell the dad originally, right? As we've seen that kind of flashback scene with him and Russell in the lab room, and them trying to figure out how to bring Josephine back. They were alone for a long time there, right? That scene was like the first time in like 20 years or something that passed from the first Red Sun. And so through that whole process, they were probably both just alone in that lab trying to work things out for 20 years. They've been really good friends in the past. So I do recognize how hard that would be for Gabriel to pull that trigger and actually kill Russell, even though maybe not actually killing him. So I do like it. I think it was a little bit convenient for the plot, to be fair, but I do understand it. So suddenly then, as tied up Gabriel is arguing with Russell about Murphy and Amori becoming primes, kind of talking some sense into them. And I think Murphy and Amori, especially Amori in this episode, kind of knew what they were doing was probably not the right decision ultimately. And through this episode, at the very end, it really comes full circle in that they just finally decline, right, So they're just like, we don't really need to be primes, right? We want to stay with our people. But anyways, so Gabriel's trying to talk some sense to them, and suddenly the power goes out, which then causes the barrier to come down. So we get the idea that Clark and Priya, and the others finally figured out how to get that barrier down, and they are successful. So then we see Bellamy, Octavia, and the children of Gabriel just rush in through the border, chanting death to primes. Maybe not Bellamy and Octavia, but the Gabriel people just yelling like death to primes. It's like their battle cry. I thought this was just so satisfying and badass. I had to mention it. Just awesome. Like, death to primes. The whole season, really, they've been saying death to primes and all this stuff. And it's like, now more than ever, like, we really actually want all the primes to die now at this point, especially Russell and that main family with Simone now. So it's just like, it's so satisfying to see, like, the fighters coming to essentially liberate the people at this point. So as they run and meet up with Clark and the others, really like the scene between Echo and Bellamy. A couple moments, but I thought it was really great of them reuniting for the first time in a few episodes. So as they figure out the distraction was made too soon, and now, Russell reassured the people the alarm is off. So now they won't be evacuating, which is a problem, but Bellamy reminds them they're here to liberate, right? They don't need a distraction if they just tell the people the truth and, basically liberate them from all the lies that they've been told over all this time. And it is an important thing, too. I think Gabriel mentions this to Russell, too. But he sees that graffiti outside of the palace saying, false gods, right, on the cart there. And so I think that also symbolizes, I think, what Bellamy is trying to say. And we just tell them the truth. Like, these people are starting to already become skeptical, as Gabriel says, and I think Bellamy recognizes that, picks up on it, and really, I mean, the truth will set you free, and that's exactly what will prevail in this situation. But I do like the one line with Russell saying, faith is more powerful than truth. I'm not sure about that, and it doesn't seem like that is the truth, or the fact at the end of this episode. But either way, I thought that was interesting too. So Clark gives Bellamy Riker's chip and says Priya will be the one to kind of reveal everything, right, and come clean with the people. So this is a really great sequence. We see Bellamy walk up to the crowd with Priya, and he tells them the truth. He essentially says the Primes are not gods, but instead murderers, and then he holds up Riker's chip, which essentially makes Priya talk, right? And honestly, these chips are, like, pretty small. Like, they're probably about the size of a USB or something like that. Like, think about this. Like, he literally probably could have just rubbed his fingers together and just broke this thing. So it's just such a fragile thing holding that person on it. So I think really it really speaks to the fact that, like, these Primes are deathly afraid of anything happening to this little chip, right? And so Priya will do anything, and so we really do see her do anything. She actually admits to the people, as well, pretty much echoing what Bellamy said. She tells the people the truth, saying Delilah is dead, and she is not one with her like they've been told in the past. This was really a kind of a chilling scene to see the people react to this. And we saw, like, we heard some of the echoes of the people saying, like, oh, it's not true. But I think the majority of people were at least, like, skeptical now that even one of the highest prime, or one of the highest primes, is now telling you that it's a lie and that they're murderers, right? It's like, wow, right? Like, that's pretty major, right? So anyway, so she grabs Riker's chip from Bellamy then, and we see that she was willing to do all of that just to save her son. As I said, I think these Primes really, really value these chips, obviously, in bringing them back. And I mean, let's be honest, I mean, so would everybody, like, really, right? Like, I mean, if your only chance to bring your son back, or daughter, or, whatever, so your family member is on this little chip, you're probably gonna do anything to get that chip back. So anyways, this is just pretty damning evidence, right, presented by, Priya and Bellamy both to the people, and we see Russell is just livid, like he's just kind of an out of body here, and he just can't have it. So he ends up going out to the balcony, says he's disappointed in everybody there, and says that they must enact the adjustment protocol to get rid of the non-believers. And of course, this is the title of the episode. We heard this in last episode too, but it was kind of just grazed over. But I knew the episode this week was titled Adjustment Protocol, so I was really looking forward to how this would play out. Anyways, so he then releases the Red Sun toxin bomb on the crowd of people, causing them to go crazy. But we also see the main objective of this is that we see some of the people attack the other people for being non-believers. And we've seen this before, in the season where we saw that one flashback with Josephine. And it seems like this toxin it almost weeds out the non-believers by making the true believers kill them. And, but it really causes everybody to go crazy. So anyways, it's just kind of a convoluted thing, but, it is interesting too that this toxin works that way. And it can sense kind of who's a believer and who's not, and then essentially makes those believers then kill all the non-believers. So, really crazy sequence here. Then we also see Delilah's parents kill Priya amongst the chaos of the crowd. That was really awesome to see, I gotta say. Sad to see Delilah's, like, body, being killed. Just the visual of it. But what's behind that in killing Priya was great. Even though, I mean, it's a little bit unfortunate because she actually just came clean to everybody. But it was at the expense of being threatened, so I don't feel too bad for her. Anyways, then we see the people start to turn on Bellamy and company, who have already taken the antitoxin, so they're okay. But Bellamy and company are being, like, tracked down by these people because, of course, like, they know they're non-believers. They're not part of the group. So we see Clark then decide to go after Maddie with Gaia, but the rest are forced into this container to stay away from the crazed people. And that's pretty much where we leave them in this episode. So they're going to be in quite a bind at the start of next episode and trying to get out of that shipping container. and trying to maybe get up to space. I mean, we're going to see how this whole thing plays out, but a really great end there. So then to end off the episode, just last couple minutes here, Clark goes to the palace to rescue Maddie, but to her surprise, when she arrives, the Primes tell her they're leaving Sanctum. And this was just a really surprising twist that, again, I didn't see coming in this episode. I thought this was, again, up to this point, I'm like, okay, pretty good is what I expected. And then this was just, along with Abby earlier, is just really throwing a curveball into everything. So then Abby walks out now as Simone. And this was just insane. And I predicted this too, that she was going to be Simone's new host. But either way, so she comes out to tell Clark that they are going until it's purified again, and now it is lost to them, essentially, right? Like, this planet now is just lost to them, so they're going to go up to space and just pretty much wait it out. I mean, they're going to be alive for centuries more, so they just pretty much have to wait out the toxin, wait till all the non-believers are weeded out of the population, and then just come back and reinvent themselves again. So it is really interesting here, and something I didn't really predict, but it makes a lot of sense. So it's really weird to see Abby playing this other woman now. We see Clark is just heartbroken, but again, still can't show it. She can't blow that cover, as Russell still thinks she's Josephine. I do want to say a little thing about that. I don't know. I feel like the whole, and especially in this scene, it was really tough for me to buy in that Russell wouldn't recognize that there's something up with his daughter here. I don't know. And I'm not sure if it was maybe the angles that they were showing us, and maybe Russell could not see her facial reactions in some of these angles, but I don't know. It took a lot of me to buy in that Russell still wouldn't have any idea that this is not Josephine anymore. Either way, that's okay, right? But I do think it was a little bit, a little bit rocky. But again, still a really great scene, because again, they have to show us how Clark feels, yet, and it may appear like other people could see that, but maybe not. Either way, it is what it is. So Russell tells her that they are going up to space and abandoning Sanctum. And in order to do so, we see Abby makes Raven volunteer to pilot the ship by pointing that gun at Maddie's head. Just kind of an intense scene, but you knew Raven was going to say yes after all. So we see Russell tells Gabriel that he could have Sanctum now as they head out. But he says, I have a feeling that you're probably not going to last very long. So I thought that was a really, cool thing too. They're just leaving the planet to their arch rival. They're like almost like divine villain almost of this whole planet, of the whole population. And they're just leaving it to him now. Like, they're completely abandoning this planet. Really crazy. And then we see Murphy and Amori decide to save their people, while Clark also reveals herself to them. That was a great scene. Murphy saying, Josephine called me John, by the way. So that was really awesome. And they're able to tell that Clark is in there. And again, could Russell maybe overhear that conversation and tell? I don't know. I just feel like he maybe would have been a little bit more skeptical. Either way, just before they leave, Clark makes sure to bring Gaia with them for more of a bargaining chip, or at least that's what she tells Russell. So that is interesting. I think that's going to come back big time. I think Clark has something up her sleeve about that one. We then see the ship dock on the mothership, where we see Indra and her army waiting for them at gunpoint. And you're like, yes! This is perfect. They won't even expect it. Indra and their army is ready for this. They've been ready. This is going to be awesome. But to their surprise, the door opens to the ship, and Russell, Simone, which is in Abby's body, and Clark are holding Raven, Maddie, and Gaia at gunpoint. That was just such a surprise to me, a surprise to Indra and her group. And, think about this for a second, too. Think about from Indra and them people's standpoint here on the ship. It's been a while for them, right? Imagine seeing Abby and Clark being with the Primes and holding their own people at gunpoint. Think about how weird that must have been for them, and kind of surprising or shocking. Just insane. But anyways, just an old-fashioned standoff here to end the episode, and I can't wait for next episode. Not what I was expecting to see at all with this one. Again, the last few minutes here just really threw a curveball to me, and that's not what I was expecting, but really great cliffhanger, and I'm looking forward to next episode. Alright, so in terms of my rating for this episode, I'm going to give this one a 4.6 out of 5. To me, this really seemed like a season finale episode, and I would have been satisfied with it. Honestly, even this cliffhanger at the end, I think would have been a really great cliffhanger to end the season. Really put these characters in very different places, and leave up, for a season 7 to really figure things out. I mean, they got themselves in quite a bind here by the end of the episode. So again, it's going to be interesting, like I said off the top, to see what they have for us next week. Because, like I said, everything played out in this episode until the very couple last minutes here, like I thought it would, pretty much, right? You know, the whole plan goes by, and the primes end up going up to space, which is something that I didn't see coming. So either way, I'm really looking forward to the next episode to see what they're going to do with this one, and you know, how are they going to get onto the mothership? Are they going to end up, you know, floating the primes? I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm really looking forward to it. One thing I do want to mention here is, where in the hell is Jordan? Like, so you bring Priya back in this episode, who they said last episode was tending to Jordan and helping him out, and then we don't see Jordan in this episode. So, I don't know. He is still alive. Like, that's been confirmed now. So, I'm just wondering where he is, and if there was something going on with Shannon Koop, maybe he got on to another show, got a small part, and he couldn't be there for filming or something like that. Because that's honestly the only thing I think of here. He was such a major character in the first few episodes, and now he's just literally nowhere to be found. Either way, and I really like the character, so I just love to see him in next week's episode if they can. Maddie and the Dark Commander, and then also the Anomaly, are things that have still yet to be answered, or still yet to be kind of given that conclusion. So that's what I'm looking forward to next episode as well. And is Abby dead for good? Is that really her death for the entire series after all this? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if Paige Turco will actually make it through next episode, because I have a feeling that Simone is going to probably go down with Russell in the finale. So, I don't know how I felt about that one. I feel like they had to make the scene the way it was to make it more shocking, but I also think, like, Abby being on the series for that long, that's the death she gets, like, that's the amount of closure we get for that character. So I thought it was a little bit lackluster, but we'll have to see how they all handle it. Because honestly, I don't think there's a way to bring her back. Like, I think she's gone. There's no neural mesh with her like Clark. And so I think she's gone. I legitimately do. So, I don't know. We're going to have to see how this all goes. And if somehow she's been able to save, or that is really her death. We'll have to see. And a great cliffhanger to end this one off. So, my favorite character for this one is Abby Griffin, played by Paige Turco. So, it looks like this will be the end of Abby in the series, unless something big happens that we don't see coming. But, again, I thought Paige Turco did a great job in this episode. The writing didn't help her out a lot, because the earlier scenes in this episode were just kind of all over the place, with crying here, happiness here, you know, elation here, to see Clark back and all this stuff. But I thought she did a really great job in this episode. And, you know, Abby has been really underutilized in the last couple seasons. This one, I think, even more disappointing storyline for her. And just really frustrating to see this being the way that she goes out. And she was getting a lot of screen time in the earlier part of this episode. I'm like, this is weird. And then I figured out, like, oh yeah, she's probably going to die. So, either way, guys, that just about do it for my thoughts on this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Abby, her death, this episode. What are your predictions for next week? A lot of stuff to discuss, guys, so I'd really like to hear your guys' thoughts, as always. But anyways, again, guys, thank you so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next week for the finale of the 100, Season 6, Episode 13.